Welcome to the Oil and Gas Sales and Marketing Podcast, where every week your hosts Mark LaCour and Matt Bertram share proven strategies and real-world tactics to help you connect with customers and close more deals. Let's do this.
Howdy, welcome back to the Oil and Gas Sales and Marketing Show. I'm your host, Matt Bertram. Mark LaCour was here earlier, said hi to everybody, and then took off and said good luck. And we're at the Sell Well Conference here in Houston, Texas. And I have Laurie Hall here, Laurie Perternal Hall, with New Horizon Strategies to talk a little bit about, well, enterprise selling in the oil and gas space, as well as some business coaching and that sort of thing. So,
Excellent.
Laurie,
Excellent.
welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me, Matt. I really appreciate being here. And Sell Well itself is such an energizing event.
Yeah, no, it's been really great. And we got to talk earlier and we talked about some of the stories. I can't wait to get into this podcast.
Excellent.
So why don't you just kind of set the table and tell everybody a little bit about your background?
Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, happy to. So I like to joke and say I'm a recovering NASA engineer. I'm meant to be funny since we do coaching, consulting, and facilitation now with New Horizon Strategies. So how did a recovering NASA engineer get into doing people development? Well, that was kind of my journey. I thought for the longest time, if you built the perfect system, then people would come. But it turns out you actually need to get people on board before they even understand what perfect looks like in the first place. And that makes it perfecter. So that's why I opened New Horizon Strategies almost 15 years ago. And now we do coaching, consulting, and facilitation with a team of about 12 different champions. Instead of bench coaches or bench facilitators, that sounds so stagnant. We're helping leaders get bigger breakthroughs faster through coaching, consulting, and facilitation.
And you have a lot of initials after your name. Could you just go through with me really quickly?
It's like my shield, our little shield, all those letters. So when I was in the government, that's when I had my big aha moment. I thought if I could fix the government, hopefully everybody's laughing
Elon
again.
Musk has decided that it might not be possible.
I know. I was like, oh, maybe I can help. And then I saw how he was doing it. I thought maybe not. But for a long time, I tried to implement Lean Six Sigma process improvement principles to try to fix the processes. I didn't realize at the time I was trying to make NASA the place that it felt like when I first started there, that level of excitement and energy that I think we all have early in our careers. And then somewhere maybe around our 30s or 40s, we kind of hit a plateau or we hit a wall and we're like, is this it? That's what my Lean Six Sigma experience was that helped me to see that it's not just about fixing the process. It's about making sure that people love what they do, including us.
Well, I'd love to talk a little bit more about how important mindset is, because I think you kind of alluded to that.
Mindset is everything. And that makes sense when you say that from your brain's perspective, but from your heart's perspective, I think we still sometimes struggle with getting our alignment down. I remember for the longest time, and maybe some of your listeners can resonate with this too, I felt like I should just enjoy what I was doing because I had for so long. And then I thought maybe it's about making a difference in people's lives. How am I making a difference? And people would say, Laurie, you're making a difference. And that's when I realized something really important. And this comes back to mindset. I think the better question is this making a difference to me? Because when we do the things that make our soul soar and sing and really help us thrive in life, that's when we tend to make the biggest difference to the rest of the world too.
And then let's port that to a business setting. I've many times walked into an organization that I've come in on a consulting gig or trying to fix a problem, and really quickly, either you realize everybody's on the same page and is trying to solve this problem, or not everybody's rowing in the same direction.
Yeah, that's typically the majority of the time. I think it's an Albert Einstein quote that says, if I had an hour to solve a problem, I'd spend 55 minutes figuring out what the problem actually was, and then 5 minutes trying to solve it, which is what I love about facilitation is to help people come together and essentially bring that problem to light and talk about it and get really clear on what it is. Normally, when you get that level of awareness with a group together, this is the beauty of facilitation. You sometimes get alignment for free, not always, but most of the time when I have an aha moment with everybody else, it's like this permission to just be human and realize I didn't have to have it all figured out. We didn't have to know the answers. We discovered it ourselves. And after awareness and alignment, then you can work on action and accountability of whatever it was that you wanted to do moving forward.
I like that.
What do you think?
Oh, so, all right, now let's look at that overlaid oil and gas. So maybe share some examples with some of your oil and gas clients of where you've walked into a room, and you don't need to share the client or anything, but just share the situation of what happened and maybe the transformation that happened through the facilitation.
Perfect. Well, we're honored to work in energy and oil and gas and sustainable energy too, and a pro case and a con case.
Yeah, that would be great.
I'm going to focus on the coaching side because we've done a lot more work in coaching, but we've done some facilitation in oil and gas too. But one thing that I think some companies for some reason start with is an approach to coaching that this will help fix someone. And sometimes you have a culture that thinks coaching means I did something wrong and I'm bad, and that can be really hard to overcome. That's a cultural thing. So then when a coach shows up with a client, sometimes the client's maybe beat down or they've got their arms crossed, like, I don't understand why I need to be here. And that's hard for the coach too, because we're not really convincing anyone they need to be here. We're trying to help them gain that awareness. Typically, when we figure out what we really need, that's the biggest chunk of trying to move forward. We wouldn't be as successful as we were if we didn't know how to put an action plan in place. But just figuring out what that next step is critical. So in one case, we were working with a client who had gone through a major restructuring from having sort of like a stovepipe organization in their downstream department and moving it into more of like a supply chain. Each level depended on each other, and it created a significantly better integrated organization. But anytime you have a change like that at that larger, this is one of the largest companies in the world, it has a massive impact on the culture and how people work with each other. So that organization included some leadership coaching in that organizational change, that transition, which was really helpful. So in one case, one of the handful of clients that I had an opportunity to work with was not interested in coaching at all. After about the second session of just talking through data and numbers of what's this transition look like, and essentially he was kind of asking me like to justify why I was talking to him, almost like a test, which is okay. You know, I'm a recovering engineer. I don't mind playing the game a little bit. But I had a conversation with him about like, what is it you really want though? Because it doesn't feel like coaching is what you really want at this time. And he said, no, I don't want coaching at all. They told me that I was supposed to come to these and I'm not sure what I'm supposed to talk about. So that actually was the best coaching session I ever had with him, because it gave him permission to do what he wanted to do, to put the steering wheel in his hands. Conversely, though, even in a situation where maybe you're voluntold, you will have coaching. I had another leader of one of the world's largest refineries that I had an opportunity to work with, and they had such extreme ahas that it completely transformed the way that they were able to lead their organization. And they made some pretty significant changes because of it.
Sounds like there's a bell curve, right? And some people want the coaching and want to excel, and they look at it as a rocket booster, and then others are hesitant to change, and then there's probably everyone in between.
Yeah, that's a good way to describe it. And no judgment. Sometimes maybe we've just been through a huge change. I don't want to open up the treasure chest of my own personality and my psyche and figure out what my belief systems are that are going to, maybe I just did that last year, or maybe for whatever reason, I just don't want to do that right now. But that's where coaching, whether it's in oil and gas or other sectors, or even coaching with sales professionals, is so powerful because it helps us gain awareness on the thing that matters the most to us right now, today. And then what do we do about it?
I love that. So I have a personal question. When you're interacting with people, I'm big on technology. My mom works for Microsoft. Like, I do a lot of stuff in the AI and marketing space. How are people viewing, on average, AI is just a wrecking ball into everything. And it started in maybe marketing and sales. It's really in HR now. It's starting to dig through HR. I actually have a chart of where it's probably going to go next.
Cool. I'd love to see that.
Lud University. I've been taking a lot of AI courses, and I wanted to see how people across the pond were viewing it. And they had some great frameworks, and it's almost dead on of what's happening. Because the big thing for me when AI started happening is like, are we going to have jobs in a couple of years? What's going to happen? Is it going to take my job? How is it going to affect it? And you have to embrace it. And I had people in my organization that were writing content, for example. I'm not going to touch anything with AI. I'm like, well, you use Grammarly, don't you? There was a whole mindset shift. There was, hey, there's skill sets we have to learn in automation and agentic flows and things that we're talking about and LLM visibility. Like there's all these kind of new things that are happening, and getting everybody in the organization on the same page was the first step, like you talked about. I'm curious how, as you interact with your clients, what are their viewpoints on it? Is it kind of homogenous, or is it all over the place, or just what have been some of your experience there?
I would love to give you a more concrete answer and say that it's homogenous and people are like, yeah, this seems like a good thing. It's all over the place. I think it's the Wild West for people. But I did a fantastic course on AI for coaches earlier this year, and it was eye-opening. I thought I understood it pretty well. Turns out I only had like a little toe in the water, and they pushed me off in the deep end. But it's an excellent question to consider. Would AI improve to the point where we could rely on it almost as a coach or a therapist or just somebody that we can brainstorm with? And so we tried that with some of the different AI platforms to understand the level of empathy that showed up. And in many cases, I call a coaching session the awareness funnel. We're taking the chaos of the day, we're trying to think through it, we're trying to kind of then like feel through it, like, this is driving me crazy, or, oh my gosh, I'm so excited, I'm a little nervous, whatever. And then sometimes we get down to our core belief systems, sometimes that are helping us or maybe getting in the way. And that's often where we get a big aha. That's the power of coaching, is the aha moment, not the action plan. The action plan comes after the aha moment. Could AI help me get to that aha moment? Short answer, yes, it can. It absolutely can. But what at least the research that I've seen so far is showing is that I think when people know it's not a human being, there's a level of empathy that's missing. So they may, when you do like an online training course versus when you actually have an instructor-led training course, it just feels different. Sometimes the online one, I'm like, yeah. Maybe I'm flying through it because it doesn't matter as much. It's like when you pay $500 for something versus $5,000 for something. I am subconsciously assigning more value to the thing that I'm paying more money for. And so when it's a human being on the other side, I think humans are still subconsciously assigning more value to the impact that that aha moment has.
I can totally see that. I see there's a lot with like intent, because I do a lot with online data. I love data. Like data is just...
I could talk to you for hours.
And I forgot the name of the book. I wish I remembered. It was talking about Google searches. And it was talking about what people were typing in Google, and they're collecting all this data, and people were a lot more open about, wow, it was pretty interesting to see what people are searching for. I would think if the intent was right and you're like, hey, no one's listening now, FYI, anything you put in ChatGPT is completely recorded by the federal government, can be recalled for whatever, Pfizer, whatever it is. But basically, it's not a human. So I can see the value assigning like based on that intent basis. And then I can see like, oh, this helps with pattern recognition. Maybe I can understand myself more. There are a lot more questions are unstructured now that are going into search prompts. It's on average 8 words that people are using search engines for. It used to be like a core word and people would sort. And now people want just the answers given to them. I think that there's going to be a bell curve of adoption.
Yeah, right? Blended approaches maybe.
Yeah, I think there's a blended approach, because one of the things we did really early on is we scraped the transcript of all our calls that we put an agent in, right? And there's some issues around having an agent in all the meetings that just recently came out. But pull the transcript, run it through a custom prompt that's uploaded with like sales frameworks that we want to find out more. And then it sends an automatic email on how they did.
Perfect.
So if you and I are talking, and I probably should set this up for the podcast, Matt, stop talking. Let the guests talk. They're the expert, right? It'll tell you what to do. Those little touches, because you're not defensive, because this is what the data is telling you, right? Like,
it makes
you're
people
going to assign and weight that differently. I think that there's a really good blended approach, because something like that, and there's of course other use cases, but that just chipping away every call and just little tweaks can start to make a big impact, especially if you apply it against a huge number of sales professionals.
I don't remember the name of the tool. I can get back to you on that. There is a software tool that's AI based where you can record, of course, with your client's permission. We're never going to do anything without the client's permission. You can record the coaching session and almost use it as a mentor coach. So you can see how often did I talk versus how often did the other person talk. And it's even measuring tone and inflection, pauses. Most good coaches are part of the International Coaching Federation. It's the most globally recognized certifying body for coaches in the world, which is really helpful to use a certified coach. There's a lot of great people out there, but use somebody that abides by the code of ethics of ICF. But it helps to also monitor your coaching conversation against the competencies that the International Coaching Federation uses. So I just, again, learned about that in my AI for Coaches class, and it was phenomenal. That would make me a better coach. At least it would give me more awareness because I don't have that data at my fingertips right now.
All right. I know I jumped off the deep end, everybody. Hopefully y'all followed me. Well, let me bring it back. So, Laurie, I know you have some stories that you put together that you prepared for. I would love to open it up for you to kind of go through some of those that you thought might be valuable for the listeners.
Good. Excellent. Well, I know maybe less of an interest in exactly what coaching is, but that's often how coaching happens, is it sort of sneaks in the back door. And then people go like, oh, maybe that would be something I'd like to try. But specifically in oil and gas organizations, what are they looking for when they're trying to hire anyone that's going to help them with their human forces?
And is that typically going to be driven by HR, or is it going to be an executive team or a technical leader that has an issue with somebody, or all the above?
Excellent question. It's really all the above. But in my experience, when you're working with a global organization, they have a global HR function that's typically looking for someone who can deliver services with a repeatability. Some of the organizations that I've worked with to get into oil and gas companies, I was a subcontractor for, because they were able to supply people across the globe. And I just happen to be the one that's in Houston, Texas, working with some of the folks here. And
timing's a big thing.
Yeah. So on one hand, it's very systematic. It's HR focused. They have multi-year contracts to deliver the same thing so that they're creating a language, a common language in their culture. When it comes to coaching, though, a lot of times executives have worked with someone who they've already built rapport with.
And they just pull them in. And they're like, this is a special vendor right here.
That's right. And they will say, make this person a vendor that we can work with. In that way, it's a little bit probably how almost all industries are, but I've noticed that there's a trend in tech industries specifically. And I think maybe this is because it was my initial hypothesis too, that if you build the perfect system, people will come. So we don't have to worry about the people side. Just make sure that the operations and the tech work. And maybe there's some HR people that are like screaming right now, like, what did she just say? But you do need the people side of things. And some tech organizations are less likely to identify their people needs proactively, if that makes sense. And I think it's a little bit harder to break into some of the oil and gas companies because they aren't necessarily prioritizing the human capital needs.
Equipment first.
Yes, equipment first. And then the other thing that I think is happening in the oil and gas sector is there's, oh my gosh, how many decades now? 50 years, maybe 70 years, 7 decades worth of riding the roller coaster of the ups and downs of this industry. They're used to like, how do I lean out everything, including people? We're seeing that in Houston right now, a lot of layoffs. And then when do I bring them back up again? And that makes it a kind of tough market to get into, which just means you have to develop the relationships.
Yeah, I can totally see that. Most people that I talk to that are in sales or in oil and gas in general are like, I've mostly been in oil, right? And I might go work at a golf pro shop or something. But that's what's hard for oil and gas companies, because when they go through these cycles, they lose really skilled people. And it takes a long time to get somebody trained back up when you need them again.
Yes.
And if they get lodged in wherever they're at, they're not coming back. People want that consistency.
Yeah.
I think it's a big part of organizations understanding what that core threshold is and keeping it consistent. There might be surges where we need additional people, but to maintain that through that and be able to project that out is maybe why oil and gas seems to restart a lot, right? There's new trends and things, but I can also see that as a positive because a lot of people from aerospace or different engineering platforms come in and bring skill sets. I've actually seen more than anything, people come from other industries, see like oil and gas lagging, and then they come up with an idea and then they go start a company. I remember, I forget the name, it was a reservoir engineering software, but basically the name escapes me right now, but he got laid off. He got his like big bonus or whatever or not a bonus,
severance,
but severance. And he was a reservoir engineer, and there was a tool that they were using, and they had to be in the office to go in and put in all their stuff.
Oh my.
And he was like, this should be a SaaS platform.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
we don't need to go in the office.
Yeah, we don't need to go in the office. And as engineers are graduating from all the major schools, the expectation is cloud.
Yes.
Okay. Like, and if you can't get on, I will not mention the organization. They are outside of oil and gas, but they are a major organization. I'm talking to them right now about Microsoft Dynamics implementation. Okay. And they have like an older ERP system, and they can't log calls in the field right now with the sales team. You can't log calls like on an app in the phone or on a laptop. Like, do you know what year it is, everyone?
Yeah,
Like, this is something that needs to happen.
That's so funny. That's so funny. It's not funny. I mean, it's where people are, but
this is going back to AI. People aren't even to Web 2.0. People are now figuring out social media is important.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like now really people are like, okay, social media. And then now we have AI, and then it's going to be like blockchain integration and payment structures. Technology moves so fast that if you don't stay with it, like you get left behind. You have to continue. And I think, guys, I'm sorry I go off the rails sometimes relay this, but bringing it back, people got to have that right mindset, and they have to understand what's happening, and they need to weigh everything that's going on. And many times coaching can help. Coaching can help insert, and training can help insert something that you're not going to maybe do on your own.
Yeah. And help get through the transition. I think actually everything that you're saying is all in the same general direction, that we are in the Army, I think, was the first one that used the VUCA term,
I haven't heard this.
volatile, uncertain, I think it's constant change and ambiguity, VUCA, that we live in this VUCA world. That was in the 80s.
I like that.
I think that was in the 80s, and it's just nonstop. And the truth is, as much as we may feel the pain associated with constant change, to be alive is to be in a constant state of change.
Yes.
And to not necessarily just get, that bottom line revenue. Of course, that's something that's important, but to actually live a life that makes me smile, I think that's the goal. We want to do the things that matter to us in our lives. And it's painful when new technology comes along, but at the same time, it's a blessing too for us to be able to use things. Oh my God, marketing's so much easier for me with AI than it used to be before, when I would try to figure out like how to write something. Helping people navigate the change through whatever adoption process it is, whether it's tech or organizational, or maybe even something happening in your personal life.
And what are the core principles or guiding stars for you that you follow, or frameworks? I feel like you have a sense about you, and I feel like you're operating in some kind of framework
system.
Can
you tell I'm a process engineer?
I would love to hear more about that, because I think perspective is so important, and I think a lot of times people just are not equipped with the tools.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like even in school they prepared you. And then all the stuff that's happening now, of course you're not prepared for it.
Yeah.
And we're all living today in an exciting time, but you got to get used to this constant state of flux and change and chaos and noise. Like sales and marketing, well, any good sales and marketing organization will just take it to the next level and just ruin it for everybody, right? Right. I mean, now we're talking about text laws, okay? Like in Texas, there's text laws.
Yeah.
I remember when there's fax blasting, okay?
Interesting.
So it used to be a volume game. Now it's a personalization game, and like kind of cutting through the noise is really important. But I would love to hear more about the frameworks maybe that you operate, or even the guiding principles of your organization.
Excellent. Happy to share. Thanks. Great question. So I think fundamentally, there's one thing that we're trying to do, and that's to help people. Maybe this is analogous, maybe this is just dead on for some folks, but I feel like we have a light inside of us. And sometimes we live in a world with too many shoulds, self-imposed, maybe externally imposed, but we have too many shoulds of how I should do it, how I'm supposed to live my life, what I should have accomplished by now, how much I should be done. And all of that dims our light. All of that dims our ability to shine. And this is why I say recovering engineer, because the me from 20 years ago would be like, what's all this frou-frou stuff she's talking about? But the truth is, if we only have 80, 90, 100 years on the planet to live this life, then what are we doing with it? And what really matters? So I think fundamentally, we're trying to help people understand what really matters. One of the ways that we do that is I have a New Horizon Strategies transformation model. So when we're working one-on-one with folks, we use it's an alliteration: reflect, resonate, resolve, refocus. And it's like Deming's plan, do, check, act. In a sense, the kind of that change curve, like how do we actually adopt something new into our lives? And then there's another model that we use when we're working with a group, kind of similar concept. It's also an alliteration. It's what I indicated before: awareness, alignment often shows up for free, and then action and accountability. That's how we focus on working with teams in team coaching, or when we're working in organizations and doing facilitation with groups. We focus a lot on the awareness and alignment piece. All that to say, it's all that awareness funnel. How do we get to that aha moment? I think there's a time and place for people to be paid to have the answer. When you hire a consultant, by all means, expect them to have the answer. Have them do the report on the side. When you hire a coach or facilitator, you're hiring them to be present with you to find the answer that already exists within you. You just have to dust it off to figure out how to get your light to shine as brightly as possible.
So to kind of land the plane with this podcast, I want to ask you one more question and then find out a little bit more about how people can get in touch with you. When you're approaching oil and gas, what are the biggest pain points that have been consistent in organizations that you've seen of when people need to think that coaching or consulting is what they need? That's the answer. Because I think a lot of times, like you said, it comes in the back door. They know that there's a problem, but they don't know what the answer is.
Interesting. Ooh, that's a good one. That's a great question. Okay, so the first thing that came to mind is the amount of time that it takes us to adopt an idea. So I'm going to say typically senior leaders will go off and think about something and be like, man, here it is. This is the perfect solution. Maybe that took 2 months or 3 months or half a year to come up with. And they had a tiger team that, went off and figured it out and brainstormed it. And then they launch it to the rest of the organization and they go, we finally figured it out. Here's the perfect solution. And the people, what do? We think it's going to be perfect, but normally people balk at it because they go, what is this? Why do I need it? Why do you think it's perfect? This doesn't work for me. Here are all the reasons this doesn't work for me. I think Brene Brown was the one that said, fears and feelings will always be part of the equation. They're smaller when you address them up front, proactively, than when you address them reactively. You address them either way. That's an indication of one thing that's really important is that we need to give people the same level of time it took us to adopt the solution, and it makes so much of a difference to include them initially.
I should probably have her on the podcast. I actually know her through my wife. She has a house here.
Fine. Yeah. Brene's great. She's great. Yeah. She's written a lot of amazing books and created a language for an area that I don't think most humans have ever really talked about or thought about, which is the connection between vulnerability and courage.
Yeah. No, I love that.
Yeah.
All right. So how do people find you, find out more about your work, follow you on social media, that sort of thing?
Awesome. Thank you. So newhorizonstrategies.com. Go to my website. You'll find our team. You'll find the about us. You'll hear a little bit more about what our why is and why that's our why. And the biggest thing that might help people remember it is a quick story, if you don't mind. So, of course, we do coaching, consulting, and facilitation. Please check us out if you're ready for that level of transformation. So why New Horizon Strategies? I remember when I was first thinking about leaving NASA, and I was like, oh man, NASA was everything to me. It had defined me. I didn't realize that, but a lot of us hang our hat. We hang our worthiness on where we work, especially the first part of our lives. And to think about leaving that place was really thinking about leaving what I had defined my worthiness by. After months of trying to figure it out and think it through and figure out a name, because you can't do anything in your business without a name. This was about 15 years ago. I came up with New Horizon Strategies. So our domain's open. Cool, I bought it. And 20 minutes later, I'm in this honeymoon phase of maybe I should Google what else is New Horizons. So I did. I Googled it, and there was a funeral home, New Horizons. That's catchy. And then there was this NASA page. And I thought, what? I'm trying to get away from NASA. Look, I still love NASA. I thank NASA for everything, including the level of discomfort to go do something else. But so I found this NASA page, and it turns out in 2006, NASA had launched a satellite to go to Jupiter, to go to Pluto, to take the first photos of Pluto when it was still a planet. Now we know there might be a lot of Plutos out there, but so I'm reading through it because I'm so fascinated by space stuff. As it went around Jupiter to get a gravity assist from Jupiter, you can't make this stuff up. It used the Laurie camera, Laurie Hall. It used the Laurie camera, the long-range reconnaissance imager, to help bring things far, far away into focus. And that's when I felt like I got a sign from the universe, literally, saying, Laurie, you're on the right track. New Horizons spacecraft and New Horizons strategies are going in the same direction.
I feel like there's no coincidences. And for everybody listening, the Earth is not flat. Everyone, thank you so much for listening. Make a difference, not a sale.
Thanks for listening to OGGN, the world's largest and most listened to podcast network for the oil and energy industry. If you like this show, leave us a review and then go to OGGN.com to learn about all our other shows. And don't forget to sign up for our weekly newsletter. This show has been a production of the Oil and Gas Global Network.